Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here and for attending this round panel. Thank you all the speakers to share their time with us. Thank you for inviting the Secretary of State for the Information Society and the Digital Society to chair this panel. We heard yesterday about the importance of cybersecurity in Europe, the challenges, cyber attacks, and so on. With all this background and with the goal of fostering new initiatives, in June 2016, we founded the European Cybersecurity Organization, ECSO, to foster cooperation across member states and also in order to have a private-public partnership and also to foster ICT, R&D&I for cybersecurity. A month afterwards, in June 2016, there was the private-public alliance between the European Union and ECSO. So we need to have all actors involved and have R&D&I and have industrial policies in terms of cybersecurity. The Secretary of State for Information Society and the Digital Agenda with the National Security for the Institute for Cybersecurity and the Center for Industrial Security. We are part of this organization, and we are all part in this of the 6 working groups and the board of directors and the partnership board, and also in the 6 working groups, the strategy group and the group of public authorities. In the case of Secretary of State for Information Society and the Digital Agenda, we've taken a key step in order to face the challenges of cybersecurity. With the support that we have in our digital agenda for Spain, whose objectives are to develop a digital economy for growth, the internationalization of businesses, and most importantly, to foster R&D&I and the ICT environment. We are therefore in line with the digital agenda for Spain, and we're also in line with the 2020 horizon. We have to think that in this horizon 2020 they will have different priorities in cybersecurity. We are in line with industrial leadership and with the challenge number 7 of safe societies. With our participation in ECSO, the Secretary of State manages, on the one hand, to foster strategic action in R&D&I in the field of ICT, especially in digital technologies, enabling digital technologies, and on the other hand, to have a joint management of national programs in cybersecurity, always following ECSO's guidelines. So this is a very brief and fast introduction for you to have an idea of where we stand today, and we'll start with the round table. I'll introduce the speakers. To my right, we have Luigi Rebuffi, who's the Secretary General and founder of ECSO. In 2016, he contributed to the foundation of ECSO and signed with the European Union and the CCPP, this public-private partnership. We also have Carlos Prieto of Cybersecurity Advanced Technologies. He's also a counselor for NATO and others. We have Antonio Ramos, who's a member of Leet Security, ICT the Security Rating Agency, and the president of ISACA Madrid. He's an auditor. And finally, I have Ramos, who is the president of Partnerships Strategic Alliances for Telefónica. He's an expert in digital signature. He's a member of different subcommittees, etc. So we will start the discussion now, and we're trying to get closer to the vision of cybersecurity that ECSO has and the CCCP has. And that's why this is called ECSO, Building Together a European Cyber Ecosystem. This roundtable is going to take place in the same way as we've had the others. First, we'll have some 20 minutes for the introduction, so they will have 5 minutes to speak and to present their views, then we'll have a discussion, and if we have some time, we will have some questions from the audience. Without any further ado, we can start by giving the floor to Luigi so that he can explain to us what the vision it is that they have from ECSO, of CCCP and security. Thank you. I'm going to speak in English because my Spanish is very limited, and I apologize.
So, we have started discussing the possibility of creating a PPP on cybersecurity back in 2011. So, as you know, in Brussels, the discussion takes a certain time, and it's only, as David said, in 2016 where we managed to set up this organization. Actually, we had, after many years of discussion, the Commission said you have only 4 months to set it up, because if you want to increase the budget for the research, which is somehow in the frame of this agreement, you have to hurry up, and you have to do it in 4 months instead of 1 or 2 years as it's usually been done. So we managed to do it quickly, and we signed indeed in Strasbourg in July of last year this agreement. And since then things have evolved very quickly, because ECSO, first of all, has been created in June. We have signed the agreement in July. We were at the beginning around 130 members. Now we are around 220 members in the association. And also, but it's not only the quantity of members that is important, but also the perception of cybersecurity which have changed, and the tasks that we are looking in this organization which have changed. At the beginning, ECSO has been created to support the PPP. The PPP is an instrument foreseen in the Treaty of Lisbon, so for promoting research. And so the Commission said, first of all, you look at please provide priority for research in cybersecurity. But things evolved, and the Commission, and not only the Commission, but also in different member states, you have seen that there is a increased need for what the Commission said, protecting the democracy of our countries. So this means the threat that politicians have seen in the election in the different countries, the cyber threat. So suddenly politicians have become aware of the cyber threats, and they put a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity. So this helps somehow to keep the ball rolling and rolling faster. And for this reason, we have an increasing interest at political level in the countries, but also in Brussels. And not only, well, the ransomware issues, they also increase the visibility of the cyber of ECSO and the PPP. So this helped the fact that we are not only looking at research, but we are looking at the more global issues, how we set up an ecosystem, a European ecosystem for cybersecurity. So we are looking at research, we are looking at standardization and certification, and Carlos will talk, I'm sure, about that. We're looking at investment, not only investment on research, but also investment in the country, in the region. We are discussing for months now with Castilla-León about the fact of what is needed, what is the contribution from regions. And it's very important, because at the end it's not Brussels who will implement, but will be locally in the region which solution will be implemented with the citizens, with the decision maker at regional and local level, or also at national level. So this is very important to have this local aspect involved. But also we are looking at the different verticals, the transport, the energy, the banking sector, the health, and so on. We are looking at supporting the SMEs. We are looking at support the education and training. This is very important. We need the desperate need of experts in cybersecurity. There are jobs which are not covered there, and the companies need experts, and the school and the cities and the young people still don't see that there is a huge possibility there. And we also discovered a real gender issue, because we don't have 50% of the possibility is simply lost from the beginning, because almost 50%, because women are less interested in cybersecurity still today. So we have to work on all these aspects, and that's exactly what we do in ECSO today. So we try not only looking at the research, so the PPP aspect, which is mainly on research, we want to go further, we want to go well beyond. And for this, we need all actors. So we don't need only the large company or the small company, but we need, and this is very important, the participation of the public administration, because it's the public administration who is defining the rule of the game, the legislative way how cybersecurity is implemented in the country. We need also the user. We need the operators of different critical infrastructure. We need the research center, the universities. So all this together, it's a huge effort. And slowly we are improving our approach. And this approach will evolve with the time, because we have now a target, which is to create a new approach for Europe in the coming years. This is a transition period, because you know, the Commission has a 7-year budget which has been defined in the past, and which is for the 2020-2026 is defined right now. So now is the time to define the future budget and to define the future opportunities for Europe to grow in this sector. So this is a very important moment where ECSO will evolve, and will evolve in something else, which it's under discussion these days. It is mentioned in the strategy which has been issued mid of September.
Gracias, Luigi. Carlos y...
Thank you very much, Luigi. Carlos, could you share your view with us, your views with us? Luigi has given a very comprehensive overview of ECSO, but the idea of cybersecurity, as many of you know, my company is a founder member of ECSO, AEI, Cybersecurity, and this year and a half since ECSO started, we've seen how the association has grown, and they have also realized the needs of the sector, and the European institutions also realized that ECSO is the appropriate channel to listen to the voice of the industry. So from my point of view, ECSO is unprecedented in Europe in terms of associations, because in a very short time they have managed to be recognized in a tacit way by the industry as a place to be. There was a gap there, that is the gap of a specific society for cybersecurity, and ECSO has filled that gap, and it was at a very timely moment. That's when Europe itself is demanding that such harmonization happens, that there's a harmonization in the cybersecurity market, or at least the ICT market in Europe. So this means that many organizations that used to be in different associations in the past, that we focused on ECSO, and out of the less than 100 organizations that were registered at the beginning, we were now 220, as Luigi was saying. We can also say that the sector is represented, and that everybody who should be there is there, from blue buyers to service providers, vertical, sector-based service providers. ECSO has developed from the initial view that we had, or the initial vision we had as an organization that was focusing on R&D. As Luigi said, we have moved beyond that, and out of the 6 working groups that we have now in ECSO, one of them focuses on that PPP agreement. But there are other 5 groups who are working on the cybersecurity market. Some of them are making more progress than others. They're working at a faster pace. depending on the requirements of the Commission or the different European institutions. We were speaking about certification before. In the short run, now that we have the cybersecurity strategy, the new European strategy on 13th of September, one of the measures included is that one of the measures to harmonize the market is the certification European scheme. And ECSO is making great efforts to offer the view of the industry, to show the view of the industry, and to gather vertical needs. And that this is the foundations or the framework for European certification system for products and services and organizations. From my point of view, ECSO is playing a key role, and the evolution, the natural evolution of ECSO is to be recognized as a more important organization still within the ecosystem, to be a tool for European institutions and for the industry as well, a place where the industry can feel represented. I'm speaking about the industry, but of course there are also other partners in ECSO and the membership of ECSO. We have, for example, the public administration, a key element to validate ECSO's contributions. Universities are also, and the academia is a fundamental member, a fundamental space where we have knowledge, early knowledge as well. And the role of ECSO is crucial, and the role that it will play in the future as well. Thank you very much, Carlos. Antonio, can you share your view about this? First of all, I'd like to thank INCIBE for giving us the opportunity of Leet Security to be here at this wonderful forum to discuss our point of view about what we do. For those of you who don't know us, and I think that this is important for what I'm going to say afterwards, Leet Security is a certification or accreditation agency for cybersecurity. Our approach is quite disruptive and new if we look at what we were doing in the past, which was a certification approach based on standardization with long deadlines and a complex way of understanding the process for all parties. But now we're going through a disruptive, dynamic approach. And you may think that I'm just advertising, but I say this because this is relevant for what I'm going to discuss now. Leet is an SME. We started just 7 years ago. We are not a startup anymore, but we are not a company that has a turnover of an 8-digit turnover either. So for a company such as ours, being part of ECSO is a great effort. There are 6 working groups. We are working on working group 1, certification and labeling, and that's where we are focusing our efforts. As we are a small company, as I was saying, we cannot do everything we would like to do. Having said this, the first point I would like to mention is that I, of course, think that in Europe we need to have a policy focusing on cybersecurity, because otherwise we will not manage to break free from dependency from third parties. If you use products in cybersecurity, you know that there are only a few European companies. If we're speaking about products, we will have American companies and even from China or Japan. So Europe needs to decide whether we want to break free from this dependency and go for it. Korea, a few years ago, was producing ceramic nails and hair extensions, and now they produce mobile phones, and they are ahead of everyone in the industry. So Europe has to think whether they want to change the status quo or not, whether we want to be leaders or followers of other markets. So in order to make that change, we need to have an industrial policy and a consensus from all parties and from society to make it happen. How can we make it happen? We first have to focus competition and openness and investment in the cybersecurity industry in Europe, and also trying to be disruptive. If somebody thinks about companies that are going to be cutting edge in a few years, you will think about Tesla, Netflix. These are companies that have changed their business model. They have changed what was being done till that time completely. And I would like to go into the second aspect, that is a certification that's been fostered by the European Commission and ECSO. And I'm afraid that we're not being disruptive there. We're just doing the same we used to do. We're using this to solve a problem of an internal market that Europe has. We're not just being disruptive. We're just doing business as usual. And this is a problem because we will not be leaders. We will not change anything. We will be followers because we're not innovating. We're not generating anything new. This is understandable when you come to these meetings. When you go to meetings, innovation, if you ask anyone, they'll tell you that this is promoted by startups, by SMEs. But when you go to these meetings, the industry is 90% of SMEs, but in the meetings it's 90% of big companies because they have the means to be there. So how many of our small companies are thinking about having a week in Europe every day, stopping your day-to-day operations to be in Brussels for 3 days? It's a high cost, a high investment, and that's why there are very few SMEs who are in those meetings who can make it regularly to the meetings, and that's a challenge that we have to overcome in ECSO. I've been a member of many associations, and that's what happens in the end. If you go to MITIC or whatever association in Spain, there's always a lack of balance because large companies have more resources. And the same thing happens with the end user. In these meetings, we have lots of certifying agencies, but there are very few final end users. And we think that end users need to have some incentives to come to these meetings. What is the incentive of users to come here for 2 days? This is a challenge we still have to work upon. Of course, the situation is far better than when we started ECSO, but we still have to continue working so that, because I think that ECSO is the only association that may make it, but it's a starting point and we have to make more efforts. To conclude, I don't want to use any more time for this. I think that in the end, especially large companies, and as we are still a small company, I can say this, they have to think about their role when they are in ECSO. If you look at the American market, one sees that large companies are just promoting innovation. They invest a lot of money in innovation, and maybe if you want, you can speak about WIDA and all that. But in the end, these companies have the capacity to go for innovation. But if these companies will come to ECSO with a mentality of saying, okay, let's see how much money we generate in innovation and how much money we can get, then that's wrong. We're lost. Europe in general. And that's everything I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Antonio. I'll give the floor to Ramos. Could you tell us something about this topic? Before starting, I'd like to mention a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank INCIBE for the invitation to be here today. And secondly, those of you who have seen the agenda, you know that I'm not Pedro Pablo Perez. I'm taking over his identity as such as Jack. I'd like to apologize on behalf of my colleague who could not make it for last minute change of agenda, so I'm substituting for him. I would like to state what my institution is all about. This is not self-promotion, please forgive me. It's just to give you context of what we do and how we act at the international level. This is the security unit for Telefónica. We belong to Telefónica Digital. It's one of the companies in the group that develops technologies, products and services which are consumed on the one hand by all the companies of the group internally, but also sold to our customers in the 21 countries where we are present directly through our operators, and also a further 15 countries with agreements that we have through other operators who are present in countries where we are not. From this standpoint, what we actually do, oftentimes they ask us, what exactly does Telefónica know about cybersecurity? Well, this vocation comes from far back. We have one of the largest communications networks in the world, but also one that is most frequently attacked. So we've had to develop internal capacities to protect our network, and from there on we've always had a security unit which has been concerned about the security of our communications network. In the year 2013, Telefónica changes and decided to incorporate this with the aim to give it a different focus, that of innovation, to be able to innovate in the scope of cybersecurity. So this unity incorporating also Chema Alonso as the chairman of this new company. From there on, in the last 4 years, we have developed our own products. We have a double aspect. On the one hand, we like to see ourselves as a manufacturer, having developed more than 19 technologies, products and services that we market, and we continue to work on them. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, obviously. We'll never be able to develop a firewall or things that are already on the market and working very well. Our aim is to detect any gaps or breaches in the market and design something to overcome this. For the last 4 years, we have achieved to grow thanks to the trust of our customers, our partners, and strategic allies at a pace of more than 30%, and we are responsible for a combined turnover of 500 million across the globe, 5 million euros. As I said, we are present and our services are provided through a network of security operations centers. We have our own network present in Europe and Latin America, plus another 5 or 6 SOCs in the Middle East. We try to promote security for thousands and thousands of customers that we have. Having said this, I'd like to explain what our commitment is with cybersecurity in Europe and what actions we carry out, some specific examples of actions that we carry out to be engaged with a single European digital market. And we've been doing this for the last 4 years. So we create products on the one hand directly or through alliances, and we create them in Spain and in Europe. Of course, we have alliances with third parties inside and outside of Europe, but we want to create our own technology. In fact, each year we generate some 4 patents in the scope of cybersecurity, and we reinvest in many companies, and sometimes we acquire some. We bring this talent on board together with the products that issue from these acquisitions. In fact, I myself belong to one such acquisition from 3 years ago. We also take part in public-private initiatives like ECSO. We try to bring our knowledge from 2 sides. On the one hand, we are a critical infrastructure, as we are in many countries where we operate. But on the other hand, we also act as a manufacturer, and we also try to bring forward our knowledge and collaborate as much as possible. We share information on cyber threats. We can share this information. One example is a cyber threat alliance, where we are the only telecom taking part in this, together with many other manufacturers, and we share on a daily basis many samples of cyber threats that we detect through our software. We try to provide also counseling and advice to our customers in compliance with the laws. We invest in innovation. In the last 3 years, we have invested an amount equivalent to 50 million euros to speed up the creation of companies and acquisitions, etc. Thank you very much, Ramos. We see that altogether, ECSO is a key agent for cybersecurity in Europe. So from now on, we can start with the discussion, and we can speak about the proposed European cybersecurity framework and the European cybersecurity strategy. We can speak about expectations. How can this affect business? Who would like to start? Mr. Luigi, could you give us an example of your experience?
You've seen that has been mentioned that the Commission has issued on the 13th of September this package, cybersecurity package, which is a review of the strategy which has been set up in February 2013. The main elements are there, and the main elements missing are still missing. Somehow, in the old strategy, they were not really mentioned the support to SMEs. And still, there is no support to SMEs in the strategy. So, in this new strategy, let's say that the Commission is looking mainly at the new role of they call it a new agency, but actually is a new role of ENISE, an extended role of ENISE. They're focusing on certification. It's very important to push the market, as Carlos said. And then there are a number of other aspects which are mainly divided in a proactive response somehow of the market, which is cybersecurity, the cybercrime, make it simple, and the cyber diplomacy, so international relationship. This is the strategy. But in this strategy, we see that still the Commission is not tackling the aspect of the real support to industry, the support to SMEs, what will be the investment. And at the same time, the Commission is saying, yes, but we need to discuss this because we are preparing a new budget for Europe, for the Commission, that this budget will be discussed in May 2018, so we cannot discuss it here. Okay, but industry and the economy needs to see where we're going to invest. What are the main actions that we are going to do in the future? And the Commission is proposing something interesting. It's always, let's say, a bottom-up approach from the Commission to propose the creation of a network of competence in the different countries where they create some link about the needs in the different countries and sharing best practices and so on. And they would like to see this somehow under the governance of a joint undertaking, which would be an evolution from the PPP. But still, all this is under discussion. We don't know how to go. We don't know if there will be once again something which is built by the Commission for the Commission or by the Commission for the community. So that's exactly where ECSO has a role with its member to say, and especially the national public administrations, that's very important, their role, because they say, no, we want to be part of the game because at the end, the economic results, the society and so on is here, is not in Brussels. So this is very important that we work together. So this PPP that we have started on research is going much, much beyond, because we are defining these days not only this transition period where the PPP will play its game, let me say, which is this 450 million plus 3 times more by the private sector, which is the PPP on research. We are defining these days how Europe will behave after 2020, what will be the budget of Europe, and also with respect to what will happen in the country at a regional level, what will be the investment, not only on research, but also in education, but also in the infrastructure, in the services. So we are discussing these days, in 2018, what will happen after 2020 of Europe. Will Europe remain as they are? Will Europe also survive thanks to, let's say, the competence which are coming from Asia or the US, or will we develop competence and products and services in Europe? And this is the question we are raising these days, and somehow this is the question which it's somehow hidden in the text of the strategy, but we need to bring it up much stronger. And this is one of the roles, I think, of ECSO in the coming months and the coming years.
Gracias, Luigi. Carlos.
Carlos, the truth is that this new cybersecurity package is going to improve the current scenario and the cybersecurity strategy that is current. It's true that, as Luigi says, it deals with key topics for the progress of Europe towards leadership and to be the best at the cybersecurity market. However, it is lacking specific measures, which in turn is an opportunity for organizations like ECSO, which can propose such measures to be implemented and propose this to the European institutions. I would like to highlight the message just conveyed about SMEs. Since they account for more than 80% of Europe's business, it's so strange that there are no measures to directly support SMEs and their growth, their empowerment. They are mentioned in the strategy, stating that the document states that the capacity of member states and business in general will be fostered. And ECSO has taken a stand formally whereby SMEs need additional support in such markets where there is a competition of Europe. In the States we have the Small Business Act protecting clusters like Silicon Valley. In China, they have protectionism to support their businesses and SMEs in general. Israel receives much military support and intelligence support to empower the staff in cybersecurity, and they are developing state-of-the-art technologies themselves. So at the current time in which Europe is still seeking the best business model for SMEs, it seems that some time is being wasted, and we ought to be properly positioned at the global level in the world market. What business is interested in having a market in which business can operate with competitive products. So the measures that are lacking still in this cybersecurity package are measures that ECSO is proposing and working on to bring about some measures that most certainly will help support industrial activity and understanding between member states, which is key in order for businesses to be able to operate in a single fashion inside the single market. Thank you, Carlos. I think we are wasting time, as Carlos said. All this time that we are wasting in arguing as to how we're going to do things, how we're going to agree, is time that others are using to do things. I feel that Europe is somewhat tepid and is not necessarily advocating for the right thing. We cannot bring forward a strategy but not be sure about how to go about it. Is it leadership that is lacking? Is it brave people, or what? The idea is that as we argue how to agree among all the member states in order not to step any red lines, others are already doing things. And in this sense, at some point we shall realize that we may have been the first world, but right now what we're doing is consuming things that are made by others. I don't know for how long we're going to be able to hold on in this situation, but we have to speed up and do something. I know Leet was born in 2010 and 2011, 2012. We started attending meetings in Europe at all levels with a common certification framework. Well, 6 years have gone by and we still have nothing. We talk about the same thing over and over again, but not doing anything. And that means that we are somewhat lost in Europe in that respect. I couldn't agree more with what you have all said. However, I would like to bring a couple of qualifications that I think are important. Business needs a strategy in Europe and proper policies to be implemented. But there are two very vulnerable groups for security. These are households and SMEs. The SMEs by themselves may probably not be able to reach the levels of cybersecurity and awareness needed. So we'll all have to work to redress this situation, to increase security, which is our goal. On the other hand, another important aspect, it's very difficult to have cybersecurity professionals. It's a concern that there aren't many such professionals. So we have to work harder to achieve professionals to fill in the gap, the demand that is going to rise in the following years. Well, unfortunately, I think we've run out of time for the round table discussion. But it's important. We can now give the floor to the audience in case anyone wishes to ask any question.
Por ahí, sí. Hay una persona con...
Sí, buenos días, muy interesante.
Good morning. This roundtable has been very interesting. Could any of you point out which measures could be taken at least at some of the fronts, something that is not being done now, especially those of you who have actually criticized the situation? Could you rephrase the question? We have not understood it, despite the fact that we're all speaking Spanish. Yes, we can hear you, but we don't understand your question. And it's not the translation this time. Some of the members at the panel have been very critical. Yes, the speaker has now decided not to use the microphone, so in this case, the translation will definitely not be the culprit of not being understood.
Concretas.
Ya, medidas concretas.
Hay una que estamos hablando, no tenemos profesionales, pues pongamos en marcha ya.
We lack professionals. Either we start training them. Well, I don't know how long it's going to take, but if we all agree that we need professionals, let's start with that right now. We don't have to waste any more time. If we need more professionals, let's do something to get them. If we need to promote the SME businesses, public administrations will have to spend 40% of their budget on SME promotion. Carlos, what do you think? What ECSO has proposed as a measure to foster aids to SMEs and business in general have to do with boosting the digital market. So we have to have one single demand among member states. We all know that in the cybersecurity sector, the buyer, the state buyer, is very important because it's a way to be able to sustain the business. So one of the concrete measures which has been proposed is to integrate or unify the internal demand of the European market. So any business will not have to go through 28 different schemes to get anywhere. And one of the mechanisms to achieve this is to create a single certification framework The current frameworks make it too difficult because there is no mutual recognition among member states regarding certain demands for cybersecurity. So if we can establish a common European scheme, a company could sell its services in any country. That's one of the specific measures that we are promoting from ECSO. Not only proposing, but also promoting as a joint certification scheme. Another measure that has been discussed by some of the working groups, that is the creation of a European cybersecurity hub to enable to approach the SMEs. This would be a partial solution to supplement the work done by national cybersecurity associations. This would be some sort of European hub capable of channeling all the different needs in the different member states in a more unified way for all SMEs. These are some of the specific measures that we have been proposing.
I would like to also to add a few things. The role of regions, because from Brussels we cannot supervise everything what is happening. There are several thousands of providers in Europe. Let's say the Commission say there is a study which is ongoing, something like 60,000 solution providers, service providers on cybersecurity in Europe. Maybe it's too much, maybe there are only 20,000, but still 20,000. And it's a lot. We cannot supervise or control or push from Brussels. So that's the role of a national level, especially a regional level. And not only for the providers, but also for the user. And the role of the region is very important. So we really try to push the regions, and I mentioned before Castilla and León, but not only. In Spain, we have also one of the Basque region, which is already a member of ECSO, and try really to play a major role in putting together the local need, the local providers, and bring things together. And not only for the needs, but also for education and training. This is another role. I'm working with the Lombardia region in Italy, where I studied, to see how we can increase the number of experts. If you look at the strategy is mentioning 350,000 experts needed by the private sector in the next 5 years. This means that for Spain needs to create something like 7,000 experts in cybersecurity per year, which even you take it's impossible. It's simply impossible because not because we don't have the money, because we don't have the teachers, first of all. We don't have also the students sometimes. Students are not interested by, still they don't see the opportunity for this job. But I see our member companies which say we are desperately looking for people because we have a business there, but we cannot satisfy this business need because we don't have the people. So these are immediate needs where Europe can help pushing and where the countries, public administration and the region can help developing the expertise and the response and European response at European level, yes.
Gracias, Luigi.
Como imagino que queda poco tiempo,
I'll try to be brief because we're running out of time. Sometimes the specific measures are very difficult. We don't know whether they work or not. I try to look at what may happen in some countries that is successful and try to replicate it elsewhere. For instance, the UK government have decided that all public administrations, when hiring a provider, need to meet with they have to meet certain security standards if they wish to be suppliers to the administration. And so many SMEs are concerned about compliance with this requirement. And this is actually improving the levels of cybersecurity in SMEs. It's not a perfect measure, but I'm certain it can be of great assistance for such companies that lack the resources, and they may do something to create a positive impact in their business and continue to supply to the administration. Thank you very much. With all of this, we conclude the roundtable. Thank you to everyone for your opinions, for your contribution, and thanks to INCIBE for inviting us, and thanks to the audience for listening.